The silver wolf sentinel pinned me into his arms with red eyes. After accidentally falling into the other world, you, a sickly guide, became the object of a frantic scramble among beastmen sentinels. The scent of blood, a thick nauseating reek of blood mixed with a distinct wild musk, invaded your nostrils, irritating your already frayed nerves. You instinctively raised a hand to cover your nose and mouth, but in that instant, you witnessed a sight that would be seared into your memory forever. A massive silver-white wolf was ripping out the throat of a brown bear, fresh blood spraying across the snow, a shocking visceral sight. Around them, several beastmen of various forms circled, eyeing each other with predatory hostility, the air thick with killing intent, ready to snap at any second. You felt like you must be dreaming. 5 minutes ago, you were curled up under the covers, scrolling through your phone, getting ready to order takeout for dinner. But the next second, a dizzying sensation of the world spinning struck you. By the time you opened your eyes again, you were lying on this unfamiliar snowy ground. The cold wind cut like a knife against your flimsy pajamas. Trembling, you tried to stand up, only to find your legs were as weak as jelly. You could barely manage to prop yourself up, half sitting in the snow. Cough, cough, cough. The violent coughing sounded harsh in the silent forest. You panicked and covered your mouth, but it was too late. All the beastmen stopped moving and turned their heads in unison. Dozens of vertical pupils locked onto you dead on. The fear of being targeted by apex predators made your whole body freeze up. You were done for. You closed your eyes in despair, waiting for the fate of being torn to shreds. But the anticipated pain didn't come. Instead, you heard low growls, suppressed and heavy. Guide. It's the scent of a guide. Mine. What followed was a bloody, brutal fight, and you could only shiver in the corner, watching it all unfold. You were huddled in the wet, cold mud, your thin clothes tattered, your breathing short and ragged. In this oppressive darkness, you seemed like a young cub about to be swallowed whole, every breath trembling with anxiety. Your voice was hoarse, sounding like an alien noise that didn't belong to this world. You only felt spasms in your stomach, your body so weak it felt like you were fading away. A sudden coppery tan pierced your nostrils, the scent of rain and blood. You tried to widen your eyes, instinctively curling in on yourself, only to collide with fur that felt completely different in temperature. Your eyes flew open. In the darkness, a towering silhouette loomed over you, exuding a thick, wild, masculine aura. His heavy animal heat, mixed with the mud and rain, shattered the fragile sense of safety you had left. You tried to retreat, but your legs gave out, and you collapsed to the ground. He moved incredibly fast. You felt a huge shadow cover you, a howl squeezing from your throat only to be cut short as he scooped you up around the waist. His movements were shockingly rough, so much so that you struggled instinctively, but only ended up weakly hooking your arm around his warm forearm. Let go. Your voice was hoarse, carrying a hint of a sob. But that beastman, you could finally see his silhouette now. His golden beast pupils were cold as shattered amber in the night. His tail twitched, and a wave of coolness swept over you. He ignored your pleas and simply scooped you up into his arms. You were extremely weak, every breath felt like it was being dragged out of your body. He clearly noticed this. His breathing suddenly dropped lower, his Adam's apple bobbing up and down, and his eyes grew even more dangerous. Your struggles gradually weakened until you went limp, letting him take you away. The rain beat against his solid back muscles. You had never realized so clearly just how fragile you were. Every time you lay in his arms, a bone-deep sense of powerlessness washed over you, as if your bones were about to be crushed by that beast-like aura. He really was like a giant beast, incredibly tall, his shoulders bearing the weight of rain and heat. In your semi-conscious state, only fear remained, and you didn't even have time to wonder why you were here. Rain hit the pine branches, mud sank underfoot, and you were wrapped only in his scent, vaguely able to smell the instinctive odor of a male beastman. Those legendary sentinels, fierce, wild, otherworldly creatures far stronger than humans perhaps. You had finally become one of those sacrificial characters in a novel. Mud still clung to your legs from the night, his tail hooking around your forearm, his wet wolf ears twitching slightly behind his head. Those golden eyes held a mix of hesitation and suppression. You couldn't understand how a dangerous existence like him had become entangled with you. His palm was huge, the center warm, capable of easily crushing your wrist. Awake? A low raspy voice suddenly exploded above your head. He seemed unsure how to speak to you. Even his questions sounded like he was suppressing a chest full of wolfish instincts. You wanted to shake your head, but only a gasping moan came out. What is your name? His voice was muffled, revealing a hint of impatience and curiosity, but it made every nerve in your body tense up. You tried to clench your teeth, but your lips parted from trembling. Ansu? You answered lowly, your voice sounding like broken pieces. Taking me, where? Raindrops and lightning reflected in his golden eyes. He seemed to pause for a moment, sniffed your neck, and finally said softly, to a safe place. You couldn't tell if it was true or false, only feeling like you were being thrown into a mist-shrouded dense stranger and colder than a hospital ward. Passing through uninhabited forests and valleys, his steps were incredibly steady, even his walk exuding a sense of intimidation. You would later learn that his name was Wei Lo. The most powerful beastman sentinel in this sealed realm, but also the most dangerous hunter. He set you down gently, his hand still resting on your shoulder. You looked around in shock. A simple stone house came into view, a fire burning in the corner, beast paw prints still remaining on the mud floor. He squatted down, looking at you without human emotion, suppressed desire swirling in his beast pupils. Your hands were shaking uncontrollably, you couldn't even speak smoothly. But he could see something was wrong with you. He stood up directly, took a piece of soft animal skin from a shelf, and wrapped it around your shoulders, his voice sounding a bit muffled. Don't be afraid, Ansu. Your skin, yet you subconsciously curled up even smaller, completely ignoring the faint low-grade fever on your body. You lowered your head, breathing with difficulty. Wei Lo suddenly stopped. He frowned, then moved closer, trying to sniff out the residual scent on you. You were clearly terrified, but didn't dare move, only shrinking like a frozen little beast. The firelight flickered, reflecting on your pale face. You couldn't see the expression on his face, only hearing his voice turn hoarse. Are you sick? You shook your head at his words, struggling to deny it, but you couldn't suppress the weakness coursing through your body. Wei Lo sniffed your wrist, pressing you completely into the furs. Fever, he stated with certainty. A bad one. In that moment you almost wanted to cry. Being targeted by a beast-like man in this other world made you feel so helpless that even crying seemed cheap. Yet he didn't take things further. Instead, he simply used his warm body to wrap you up in his arms, his posture like guarding his meal. You didn't know the rules of this land, nor did you know if he would abandon you the moment he turned away. But on this rainy night, you could only shrink tight into his scent. You were like a ghost waiting to be forgotten by the world, trapped in his embrace, daring not to hold even a sliver of hope. Suddenly, a low growl came from outside the door. You tensed up instinctively, and Wei Lo turned his head slightly. He released you, rising with a movement full of wild power. It was only then you noticed the obsidian whip at his waist. Unlike human weapons, this was an artifact passed down among sentinels. You held your breath instinctively, afraid that every passing moment signaled new danger. Wei Lo didn't look back. His voice was soft, yet carried a command. Don't move. Stay here. You watched helplessly as he pushed open the door and walked out, leaving you alone with the firelight. Your mind swirled with countless worries, fears, and unknowns, yet there was an inexplicable sense of safety. You wrapped the furs tighter around yourself and curled into a ball. The night rain battered the door outside. The tall figure in the darkness had taken the threat away, yet he also invisibly placed everything about you under his control. You swallowed hard, forcing down the fear that felt solidified in the air. All that remained was the sound of your heartbeat and the continuous roaring in the distance. You had no choice, you could only wait, but you didn't know that the tides of this other world, the wildly growing savage desires, were climbing toward your chest. The air still echoed with the crackling of the fire, mirroring the frantic beating of your heart. The warmth of the furs couldn't fight off the chill inside you. Your hands wouldn't stop trembling. It felt like every bone in your body was reminding you that Silver Wolf could return at any moment. His existence was like a wildfire burning through your very veins, scorching you until there was nowhere to run. You hugged your knees, curling into a tight ball, your nerves stretched to the breaking point. Even wrapped in furs, separated by the distance of worlds and the barrier of language, this sense of safety was nothing but an illusion. You tucked your chin into the hollow of your shoulder. Your body was incredibly weak. Every breath felt like it took all your remaining strength, and your throat was parched and aching. The night wind lifted the curtain at the door. You trembled as you looked out, hearing the distant sound of hooves crushing fallen leaves. The heavy oppressive aura of a wild beast spread through the dark night. Outside, it sounded like two beastmen were in a standoff. Their voices carried the sharp grating tone of metal clashing against metal. Did he stop you? Stay back? The fresh human guide has the sweetest scent. Get the hell away from me. Each fierce low growl was mixed with the threat of snapping teeth. You could almost imagine the violence happening outside. You bit your lip hard, daring not to make a sound, terrified that even a single breath might cause that suppressed primal savagery to snap. You recalled the bloody battle in the snow you had witnessed at the start. You finally understood what these sentinels saw in a guide. You were a precious prey, a feast the clan had hungered for ages. You hadn't been luckily saved. You had simply been claimed first by that giant wolf Wei Lo. Your teeth chattered slightly from the high fever. You pulled the furs tighter around you and subconsciously touched your dry, cracked lips, praying over and over again that the silver wolf would not return. But your reason was terrifyingly clear. On this wilderness that wasn't yours, hundreds of strong, majestic beastmen sentinels were fighting over that tiny bit of scent you carried. At any moment, they could tear you to shreds. Time dragged on in the cold night, stretching into a terrifying eternity. Finally, you couldn't hold on any longer, and your body slowly slid down onto the furs. A gust of wind blew through the window, carrying the smell of blood from the forest, a fishy sweet dampness, and the panting of a stifled throat. You curled into a ball, your limbs cold as a corpse. Waves of violent headaches and chest tightness crashed over you, nearly causing you to lose consciousness. You didn't know how much time had passed when you vaguely heard the wooden door click. It was pushed open carefully, yet with an irresistible force. You instinctively wanted to run, but you didn't have a shred of strength left. Through blurred vision, you saw an incredibly tall figure walk in. He had fox ears bathed in the night and rain, pale hair falling to his shoulders, and eyes so deep it felt like they were swallowing you whole. Wei Lo had returned. In this moment, all your defenses and pretenses became meaningless. He walked over to you, looking down from above. He sniffed the air, his voice low and raspy. They didn't dare come close, but your fever has gotten worse. You're freezing all over. Why didn't you call for me? You weakly turned your face away. I'm fine. Your voice was broken and pale, laced with instinctive self-defense. He didn't ask any more questions. His actions were far more direct than his words. He leaned down, wrapped you layer upon layer in the furs, and pulled you into his arms, pressing you tight against the heat of his chest. You opened your eyes in fear and tried to push him away, but his arms locked around you like iron vices. Your fingertips pressed against his waist, feeling his violent heartbeat and restless breathing. Wei Lo lowered his head and rested his broad jaw against your forehead. His scent was hotter than the fire, more oppressive than the rainforest. He was like a male beast guarding his nest, taking the only remaining prey for himself. Don't be afraid, I won't hurt you. His voice held a tenderness he didn't seem aware of. Yet it sounded more like a declaration of sovereignty. You didn't dare struggle anymore. You could only lean against him, listening to his heavy, forceful panting, feeling your skin, cold as ice, slowly begin to warm up. But you knew very well in your heart that this wasn't protection. It was a dangerous kind of possession. That primal animal instinct wouldn't allow his own kind near, nor would it allow you to escape. You stared wide-eyed at the dancing firelight, feeling the body wrapped around you as tight as a band of iron. Every breath he took sounded like a low growl in your ear. The night grew deeper. Beside the fire weakened by the fever and the shocks, you finally couldn't hold on and drifted into a daze. You only remembered Wei Lo muttering something in your ear, seemingly using soothing syllables from an ancient Sentinel tribe. His fingertips sometimes unconsciously rubbed against your pulse, as if confirming your existence, or perhaps declaring something. Ansu, this is our marked scent. No one can take you away. Your consciousness drifted in and out through the haze. You felt the sound of fighting outside drawing closer. You forced your eyes open just as two burly beastmen smashed through the door, one a towering grey bear, the other a leopard, his spotted patterns gleaming dangerously in the night. Get out of the way, hand over the guide. That voice was filled with feral hatred, carrying the most extreme jealousy of their kind. They were here to fight for you. You tried to scream, but the fever and weakness robbed you of your voice. Wei Lo's tail snapped around your waist. He stood up, his eyes brimming with cold killing intent. He is mine, the silver wolf growled low. Dare to take another step closer, and I will tear you apart. What gives you the right to hog him for yourself? The grey bear beastman's voice was rough and raspy, thick with excitement and agitation. There is only one guide. Figure out who the strongest sentinel really is. The tension was ready to snap. The leopard beastman moved with lightning speed, lunging at you. Before you could even gasp, Wei Lo snatched you up, leaping with you to the corner of the room. He clamped a hand over your head like a shield, locking your entire body against his chest, using his broad frame to block every threat from behind. Take one more step, and I'll kill you, he growled viciously, his voice practically baring his fangs, sounding bloodthirsty and manic, even in your sickly and frail state, on the verge of death. To these crazed predators, you were a treasure radiating a fatal allure. Every attack and struggle revolved around you. The air you breathed was thick with the scent of blood and singed fur, nearly suffocating you. You watched as the grey bear suddenly pounced on the leopard. The two massive beastmen wrestled, fragments of skin and fur flying through the air, fierce fangs snapping inches from throats. The whole space seemed ready to turn into a slaughterhouse at any second. And what of you? You were pinned tight in Wei Lo's grip. As the core of this spiraling battle, your life and death were no longer your own. You were like a frail little beast capable only of gasping, swept away by the wild waves at the center of the storm, trying every time you opened your eyes to lower your presence as much as possible. The brawl between the beastmen raged for a long time. You watched in terror at the violence fierce enough to tear the roof beams down, blood splattering, the wind howling. Finally, the grey bear and the leopard were pinned to the ground by Wei Lo. Your breathing grew ragged, but the rage, greed, and jealousy of the beastmen did not fade. They were only temporarily driven away, but before leaving they cast threatening glares. Don't expect peace wherever you go. The leopard licked his bloody claws as he left, sneering softly. Soon, every sentinel will be here. Hearing this, you closed your eyes in despair. You could already sense that a wave of beastmen would soon surround you like the tide. Their out-of-control instincts would tear you apart, fight over you, or even imprison you until death. Wei Lo was drenched in blood. He slowly cleaned up the aftermath, pulling you back into his arms. He roughly wiped the sweat from your forehead, yet those hands were incredibly gentle, though filled with a desperate, irresistible force. Don't be afraid, he soothed you softly. They won't win. You belong only to me. It was a reminder that he didn't need your consent, nor would he leave you any other choice. You were a treasure on his territory, destined to become his private possession. While you were still in shock, Wei Lo lowered his head, rubbing your neck with his knuckles. His cool nose tip drew near as he whispered, "Ansu, I will protect you. No one gets to you." The wind rose outside. New beastmen chieftains and tribal representatives were approaching in waves. The vortex of the otherworld hunting ground truly began to unfold, and you could only shiver within the custody and confinement of this silver wolf sentinel. Waiting for the storm to break. The fever never really let go of its grip on you. After that night, the beastmen tribes fell into unprecedented chaos over you. You were placed under house arrest by Wei Lo in the stone house. Every meal and drink was personally guarded by him. Outside, the tension was high, and the hostility between beastmen grew heavier, yet you, alone in the center of this storm of bestial conflict, were pressed tight against his chest. Even a soft cough was enough to trigger his full vigilance and fierceness. And so, you could only nestle in the embrace of the most ferocious beast, waiting for the next storm to arrive. You huddled in the corner of the stone house, which smelled of damp and mold, uneasily tightening the beast's skin wrapped around you. Gray morning light quietly seeped through the window cracks, carrying charcoal dust from the bonfire and the biting chill of the wild. Even your short, shallow breath stirred up the fine ash floating in the air. The clash between the beastmen from earlier still rang in your ears. In the silence, you could almost still hear the low roars and the dull thud of heavy bodies hitting the ground in the distance. You didn't dare let your guard down. When Wei Lo returned to your side, you couldn't even speak. He simply leaned down naturally and scooped you into his arms with an irresistible movement. It was a strange way to hold someone, like cradling prey to keep its warmth from escaping, yet also like firmly clasping a fragile treasure within the bounds of his power. Your cheek pressed perfectly against the hollow of his shoulder, your nose constantly against his scalding skin and fine silver fur. You smelled the blood that wasn't yours mixed with the bottomless scent of male pheromones. You struggled to stay calm, but the physical weakness and fear made your limbs tremble uncontrollably. He sensed your trembling in silence, lowered his head to brush warm breath against your ear, and softly called your name. Ansu. You blinked your stinging eyes, unable to see his expression clearly. Wei Lo fell silent for a moment, his heavy breath tangling in your hair. His voice sounded like he was trying to restrain his bestial instincts, yet it carried a thick, confusing emotion you couldn't unravel. Don't be afraid. You coughed softly and subconsciously tried to shrink back, but he pressed you tighter. You could feel every wisp of heat radiating from him, even the heavy thud of his heartbeat. His chin rested on your forehead, rubbing quietly, as if confirming that you were still a warm, living thing under his control. Flustered, you avoided his gaze and tried to shift away, but this slight movement made Wei Lo's tail twitch. The fluffy tip of his tail unquestioningly wrapped around the back of your knee, steadying you. You felt even more like a captive young beast, unable to escape the narrow cage. You struggled to speak, but your weak voice produced only a raspy whisper. Wei Lo seemed to understand every bit of your struggle and let out a low chuckle. He seemed to finally rein in his killing intent from earlier, those golden beast pupils gradually softening. He nudged closer behind your ear with slight pressure, his breath carrying the bitter scent of sweat and wild herbs, making your head spin. Just rest a little longer. His tone gently wrapped around the fear in your heart. Yet his voice carried an intense oppression. My scent will help calm you. You stared blankly, recalling the words those beastmen had argued over earlier. The guide's scent, the finest fragrance. You understood that your alien aura, once exposed to these sentinels with their overpowering primal instincts, would provoke unpredictable plunder and madness. You sniffled, wanting to say something, but your body grew heavier amidst the high fever and fear, leaving you helpless and unable to escape his arms. You felt Wei Lo's hand silently exploring, stroking the back of your neck. His palm was wide and dry, yet carried a certain primitive roughness as he slowly rubbed your back, as if comforting you in his own way. You tried to dodge, but he pressed your chin against his shoulder, positioning you in a way that allowed no refusal. Suddenly, emanating from his skin, you caught a slowly spreading spicy pheromone, the scent of a marker belonging only to the apex beast of this territory. Your sluggish mind finally realized it. He was marking you. You felt a mix of shame and indignation, yet you could not break free. Wei Lo's Adam's apple bobbed, his low, raspy voice drifting right behind your ear. Don't be afraid. Let me stay with you like this. They won't touch you. You only felt your body growing heavier, wrapped in his breath, as a strange warmth spread from your neck down your entire body. His pheromones seemed to tinge the very air with a sweet clawing suppression, forcing all the nerves in your body to lose their resistance. You recalled reading in books that a guide's scent was the most precious thing in this world, one that would drive all apex beastmen to fight madly for it. And you right now had inescapably become the center of that storm. This made you feel even more lost and fragile. Occasional fierce roars came from outside, and you curled up in his arms, unable to move a muscle. Wei Lo, seemingly feeling this wasn't enough, simply scooped you up, beast pelt and all, and moved towards the warmer fire pit in the corner. You instinctively curled up, unknowingly leaning against the side of his thigh. He steadied you with one powerful arm, while his other hand picked up a piece of flint to tend to the bonfire. With a soft hiss, sparks flew in all directions. The bonfire roared to life, casting your intertwined shadows against the crude stone wall, swaying silently like two silhouettes with undefined boundaries. He tucked your entire body into his embrace, leaving only your head exposed, as if terrified that someone might see you or snatch you away again. The warmth of the fire finally allowed you to catch your breath. From a pile of clutter in the corner, he retrieved a pouch of wild fruits. He carefully peeled one with the tip of his claw and held it to your lips. You cast a timid glance at him. Those golden beast pupils gleamed with a fiery luster in the light of the flames. "If you don't eat, you'll only get weaker," he urged in a low brook no argument tone. You opened your mouth, and the jelly-like fruit flesh was pressed between your lips. Compared to the panic and weakness, this warm sweetness briefly allowed you to regain a sense of security. You tasted the fruit, finding it fresh and sweet, with a hint of sourness, feeling strangely unreal amidst your feverish haze. "Is this helping you feel any better?" He lowered his head, his face almost pressing against your bangs. His breathing became rapid. You noticed his beast ears perking up slightly, as if probing your scent. His tail unconsciously curled around your ankle, and his broad hand suddenly tightened, gripping your soft arm with uncontrolled force. You paused for a moment, vaguely sensing that his emotions went beyond mere worry. In your sluggish state, you even felt a suffocating ambiguity heat up your face, an ambiguity that felt more like the instinct of a predator salivating over its prey, while you could only passively endure it. Wei Lo seemed a bit awkward himself. He rested his chin a little too naturally on the crown of your head, neither quite comforting nor forceful, and lowered his voice, mixing it with his heavy breathing. "Don't leave my sight again. You are too weak." Your body trembled, not knowing how to respond. He sighed again, as if joking, "You attract trouble so easily. Even my own kind wants to snatch you away. Do you have any idea how dangerous you are?" This tenderness laced with a gritted hatred made you lower your eyes in shame. Outside the hut, there were clearly more beastmen spying from a distance. Your intuition told you that a storm was brewing outside. The entire tribe was shrouded in a restlessness born of mad animal instincts and the scent of a guide. And you had become the only lamb. You licked your lips and finally forced a swallow, responding to him in a low voice. "I won't run away." He stared at you for a few seconds, and then finally seemed to relax. You leaned against him without moving, yet the atmosphere strangely became hazy and drawn out under the firelight. Your mind was groggy, and you could no longer tell if it was the sickness or his nearly aggressive pheromones causing it. This silence lasted only a moment. The next second, you suddenly heard rapid footsteps outside the hut. Wei Lo's body went taut instantly, his tail shooting straight up. "Don't be afraid." He said only this, then quickly pressed you firmly against his chest, turning his back to the stone door. You were almost entirely wrapped up by his fur, with only a small gap near his chest to breathe through. You could even feel the tense contraction of his abdominal muscles. From outside the door came a chorus of rough beast speech, low growls of anger mixed with faint calls. You caught a few scattered words. "Guide, mine, don't even think about it." A cheetah beastman, tail hooked around a small wooden staff, charged in. His face wore an expression of smug confidence mixed with intense jealousy. Beside him followed a grizzly sentinel, shoulders laden with firewood and carrying the thick scent of blood. "He can't protect you forever," the cheetah rasped. "Wait a few more days until the mating heat hits. Will you still think you belong exclusively to anyone then?" Wei Lo ignored them completely, instead holding you even tighter, tucking you away securely. The air in the room tightened abruptly, and you felt you could barely breathe within such a dangerous atmosphere. The two beastmen outside were at a stalemate. The grizzly pressed forward step by step, while the cheetah's pupils contracted slightly, looking ready to strike at any moment. You didn't dare make a sound. Every inch of you pressed against his chest was burning with fine sweat. Wei Lo pulled you into his embrace without reservation, planting a gentle kiss on the back of your neck, leaving a scent that only a mate could perceive. He took a deep breath, as if trying to isolate every scent from outside and lock you safely within his hold. His words carried a clear declaration and a possessive ambiguity. "Only I am allowed to touch you." You froze in shock, but he smoothly turned his head away, keeping his back to the two beastmen, and let out a violent, low growl. The intruders were forced back toward the door, unable to come even a step closer. The air was filled with an increasingly rich male scent. You felt the smell of his sweat all over your forehead, accompanied by the throb of a surging pulse. You tried to breathe normally, but your stomach churned with dizziness and chaos. This overwhelmingly oppressive form of protection and possession left you with no way to resist. You felt as though you had been thrown by the entire world into a storm within this primeval forest, able only to clutch the slipping beast pelt with desperate strength. As the night faded and the dew vanished, you drifted in and out of sleep, nestled in his arms. Before dawn the next morning, more sentinels from different tribes attempted to approach the stone house, but Wei Lo sensed them immediately. He didn't even bother to engage them. Instead, he simply scooped you up and carried you deep into a den in the dense forest, a place where only your intermingled breaths and rising heat existed. You felt completely cut off from the world. No matter how frantic the beastman became, or how unhealed your wounds and illness remained, he kept you trapped firmly by his side with a possessiveness that bordered on paranoia, guarding you like his last meal. The air was thick with an atmosphere more dangerous than the night itself. Every struggle, Every breath you took was enveloped by a sticky layer of pheromones. It felt as if even your breathing was monitored by him, as if your very being had inevitably become embedded in his domain. As the night deepened, so did your reliance on him and your fear of him. You knew you were being protected, yet every time he tightened his embrace, you felt thoroughly marked by the most dangerous heat this land had to offer. Storms were brewing deep in the wilderness, but you could only passively lie in the arms of the strongest predator, drowning step by step in that thick, inescapable possessiveness. You watched him burn through the night to keep watch over you, using his own scent to overwhelm your senses and severing your connection to the rest of the world. You were like a fragile piece of jade in his hands, touched, filled and hidden away by that beastman again and again. Outside, the winter snow, the blood, the unrest, and the covetous gaze of other sentinels could only linger at the boundaries of your domain, forever barred from entry. The den deep in the forest was even more primitive than the stone house, surrounded by thick vines and moss, with only a sliver of light showing from the top. Wei-Lo settled you on a pile of dry hay in the innermost recess, while he stood guard at the entrance like a stoic statue. Your fever finally began to break, but your body remained terribly weak. With every breath, you could feel the pheromones he had left on you. It was a mark of utter dominance, causing other sentinels to instinctively recoil, even if they came close. What exactly do you want? You finally asked, mastering your courage, your voice raspy. Wei-Lo turned his head, his golden beast pupils gleaming in the dim light. He was silent for a long moment before slowly walking over and crouching beside you. I want you to live. The answer stunned you. You had expected him to say something about possession or claiming, but you hadn't expected such a simple, straightforward wish. Why? You pressed softly. I'm just a human who wandered here by mistake. He reached out, his rough thumb gently brushing against your pale cheek. Guides are precious, but you are special. His voice was low, carrying an emotion you couldn't quite place. There is a scent on you that drives every sentinel mad. You instinctively wanted to retreat, but he gently pressed down on your shoulder. Don't move. I won't hurt you. What about the others? You remembered the frenzied beastmen, your voice trembling. Will they keep chasing me like this? Wei-Lo's expression turned grim. The mating season is coming soon. He gritted his teeth as he spoke the words. When it hits, every sentinel in the tribe will lose their mind. Your heart lurched violently. Although you didn't fully understand the rules of this word, the words mating season were enough to terrify you. Then, what? What should I do? He suddenly leaned down, pressing his forehead against yours, his scorching breath ghosting over your face. Become mine. Those 3 words felt like an ancient vow, carrying an undeniable dominance. You widened your eyes, wanting to speak, but he silenced you with a gentle press of his finger against your lips. Hear me out. His voice became urgent. Sentinels and guides can establish a mental link. Once that link is formed, no other sentinel can covet you. But you wanted to say you didn't belong to this world at all. But the words died in your throat. Wei-Lo seemed to sense your hesitation. His tail lashed anxiously. I know you're afraid, but besides this method, I won't be able to protect you for long. Just then, a commotion erupted outside the cave. Several birds flapped their wings in panic as they fled, and the sound of snapping branches drew closer. Wei-Lo instantly tensed, shielding you behind him. His fangs bared slightly as a threatening growl rumbled in his throat. Found it. A stranger's voice echoed at the cave entrance. The scent of the guide is right here. You recognized the voice of the grizzly bear beastman from yesterday. Immediately after, more footsteps approached, not 1 or 2 but an entire pack. Wei-Lo's muscles tightened to the limit, his silver fur standing on end. He glanced back at you, a look of determination flashing in his eyes. Ensu, trust me. Before you could react, he suddenly spun around and pinned you beneath him, his searing lips pressing against your forehead in an instant. A strange, powerful force surged into your mind, as if something were taking root and sprouting within your spiritual world. You cried out in surprise, instinctively trying to push him away, but you found your consciousness being pulled by something. It was a vast expanse of silver-white snow. Under the moonlight, a solitary silver wolf threw its head back and howled. That was Wei-Lo's mindscape. Don't resist. His voice sounded directly in your mind. Let me in, Ensu. The beastman outside seemed to sense something, and the commotion grew even more violent. Someone roared in anger. He's trying to force a link. Stop him, but it was already too late. The moment the first wisp of spiritual energy truly merged, you felt the whole world spinning. Wei-Lo's memories, emotions, and desires flooded your consciousness like a tide. You saw his shock when he first caught your scent, his inner anxiety while guarding you, and you also saw, you snapped your eyes open, your cheeks burning. Those primitive impulses belonging to male instinct made you so ashamed you wanted to flee, but the link had begun, and your spirits were tangling together in an irreversible way. You let out a sound that was half sob, half moan, your fingers weakly clutching his arm. Wei-Lo was panting as well, his forehead still pressed against yours, complicated emotions churning in his golden eyes. I'm sorry, but this is the only way. The link continued to deepen. You could feel his heartbeat, his breathing. And even the beastly nature he was striving to suppress at this very moment, and he, in turn, could feel your fear, your confusion, and a secret flutter of arousal. The beastmen outside let out angry roars, but not one of them dared to rush in. The rules among sentinels were clear. A pair undergoing a mental link must not be disturbed, or both parties risked mental collapse. It felt as though a century had passed. When the last wisp of mental strength finished merging, you were completely drained, collapsing limp onto the dry grass. Wei Lo was in no better state. He panted heavily, the pheromones radiating from him so thick they almost turned into substance. "It is done," he said, his voice hoarse. His eyes held a mix of satisfaction and possessiveness. "You are mine, Ansu. You wanted to deny it. But you realized something had indeed appeared deep within your consciousness. That was his mental mark, like a warm cocoon, gently enfolding your spiritual world. What was more terrifying was that you could clearly feel his emotions. That scorching primal desire, almost enough to swallow you whole, was continuously surging through the link. Don't look at me like that." You turned your face away in shame, your voice barely a whisper. But Wei Lo reached out and gripped your chin, forcing you to look into his eyes. "Do you know what this link means?" You bit your lip and shook your head. His thumb gently rubbed your lips, his voice low and dangerously husky. "It means you can never escape. Your joy, your anger, your sorrow, your happiness. Every single thought, I can feel it. And you?" He leaned close to your ear, his scorching breath making your whole body tremble. "Can feel my desire for you." Just at this moment of extreme intimacy, an aged voice suddenly came from outside the cave. "Enough. Wei Lo, bring the guide out." Wei Lo's body stiffened. He slowly stood up, shielding you behind him. "Elder." A white-haired wolfman elder walked into the cave. His sharp gaze swept over the two of you before finally settling on you. "A human guide, truly rare. She is already my linked partner." There was a warning in Wei Lo's voice. The elder shook his head. "The link is just the beginning. She must pass the trial to truly become a guide recognized by the tribe." "What trial?" you couldn't help but ask. The elder looked at you meaningfully. "On the next full moon night, you must enter the mist forest alone and retrieve the moonlight flower. Only in this way can you prove yourself worthy of the strongest sentinel." Wei Lo immediately objected. "No, she is too weak inside the mist forest." "What is inside there?" you interrupted him. The elder's expression turned serious. "It is a gathering place for sentinels who have lost control. Some sentinels who have fallen into permanent frenzy because they lacked a guide. They have long lost their reason. Upon seeing a guide they will only..." He didn't finish, but you already understood. "What if I refuse? Then your link will be forcibly severed, and you," the elder paused, "will become the tribe's public property shared by all unpaired sentinels." That word made your body go cold. Wei Lo, even more furious, bared his fangs. "You dare. This is the rule." The elder remained unmoved. "I will give you 3 days to consider." With that, he turned and left. The other beastmen retreated as well, but you could feel their greedy gazes never leaving you. Only the two of you remained in the cave. Wei Lo paced back and forth irritably, his tail twitching uneasily. You leaned against the stone wall watching him with mixed feelings. Through the link, you could feel his inner struggle. He wanted to protect you, but he couldn't defy the tribe's rules. And deeper still, a primal impulse was surging, one that made your face flush red. "Wei Lo," you called him softly. He stopped, immediately appearing before you in an instant. "What is it? Are you uncomfortable?" You shook your head and reached out to gently touch his cheek. His temperature was high and the muscles beneath his skin trembled slightly at your touch. "I will go," you said. "No." He denied it immediately. "It is too dangerous." "But there is no other choice," you gave a bitter smile. "I don't want to become that kind of thing." Wei Lo's eyes darkened. He suddenly pulled you into his arms, holding you with such force that he seemed ready to crush you against his body. "I won't let anyone touch you." "But..." "No buts." He cut you off, his voice carrying a certain paranoia. "At worst, I will take you and leave the tribe." You froze. "Leave?" "Yes." His fingers tangled in your hair. "We will go to a place further away where no one can find us." The proposal was tempting, but you knew it wasn't realistic. Through the link, you could feel his attachment to the tribe. This was his home, his everything. "No," you said firmly. "I want to participate in the trial." Wei Lo wanted to object, but you pressed a finger against his lips. "Trust me." "Just as I trust you." He looked at you with complex emotions in his eyes. After a long while, he said hoarsely, "Then I will go with you. The rule of the trial is to go alone." "I don't care about the rules," he said stubbornly. "You are too weak. I cannot let you face those madmen alone." You knew you couldn't persuade him, so you could only helplessly lean into his embrace. His heartbeat echoed in your mind through the link, and gradually, you actually felt a sense of peace. Wei Lo. After the link, what are we considered to be?" He was silent for a moment, then lowered his head to kiss the top of your hair. "You are my mate, my guide, my everything." This answer made your heart race wildly. You could feel his sincerity as he spoke, that deep-seated devotion transmitted to you without reservation through the link. But at the same time, You also felt another, even more scorching emotion. He was desiring you. You wanted to say something, but found your throat so dry that no words would come out. Wei Lo also seemed to realize his loss of control. He took a deep breath, trying to suppress something. Sorry. The link was just established, and I still can't quite control it. It's okay, you said softly, your cheeks burning hot. For the next 2 days, Wei Lo hardly left your side for a moment. He taught you how to sense danger through the link, and how to use his power to protect yourself. But what made your heart race and your face flush the most were those desires transmitted unintentionally. Whenever he looked at you, whenever he touched you, that primal impulse would flood into your consciousness through the link. You knew he was trying his best to restrain himself, but the instinct of a sentinel was too powerful, especially when facing the one he loved most. You moved your cold fingertips slightly, and Wei Lo's tail immediately wrapped around your ankle like a chain. He didn't open his eyes, but his lips moved close to your ear. The husky flow of air seemed to carry the shape of fangs as he uttered just 2 scorching and resolute words. Don't be afraid. The weight of this promise pressed heavily upon your chest. The crushed moonlight flower, the eternally falling mist, the madness of the entire Sentinel world. This unsolvable vortex, he actually harbored the wild delusion of breaking through it all for you alone. In the darkness, you clench your fist, feeling 2 opposing forces tearing wildly within you. One is the instinctive shudder of impending doom. The other is the scorching snowfield he has branded deep into your soul, that undeniable, blazing expanse.